Title of presentation is Efficacy of Ingelvac PRRS MLV against the heterologous PRRS 174 challenge. A pretty frequently asked, typical asked question in the field are, do existing PRRS modified live vaccines cross-protect against current and circulating field strains of PRRS? That's a question that we get from the field pretty routinely. And with the emergence of new heterologous wild-type strains like the 174, it's a question that arose again over the last year or so. PRRS virus 174 is, first detected a year and a half to 2 years ago and has now become pretty predominant within PRRS states in the U.S. So the onus was on us and others to look at challenge cross-protection studies to demonstrate efficacy of the current vaccines that are in the industry today. Just a little background. Over the years, Boehringer Ingelheim has conducted numerous cross-protection challenge studies. In these studies, they look at vaccinated animals that are challenged with current and relevant field virus isolates. This slide is just kind of a picture print of a paper that was presented by Dr. Abby Patterson, a couple years ago. In this paper, she summarized 21 independent studies that were done over several years. In each one of these studies, they looked at Ingelvac PRRS MLV in a cross-protection challenge model with current relevant challenge isolates. They measured efficacy based on vaccinates compared to non-vaccinates. And really what that table shows, the table from the paper, is that in each and every one of these 21 studies, Ingelvac PRRS vaccinates compared to non-vaccinates demonstrated a significant reduction in PRRS-induced lung lesions. We also see a reduction in post-challenge viremia and improvement in average daily gain post-challenge as well. But just evidence that over the years, we've looked at many studies, continually addressing that question, do the current modified live vaccines cross-protect to the current and relevant circulating viruses that we face today in the industry? Okay? So in this particular study, the objective was to evaluate the efficacy of Ingelvac PRRS MLV and Fostera PRRS in 3-week-old respiratory heterologous challenge model. Pretty typical challenge model relative to PRRS. For this challenge model, we used a PRRS 174 challenge isolate that originated in North Carolina. It was isolated in North Carolina in a system 2015. And you can see there that third bullet point, the 174 isolate was clearly heterologous to either of the vaccines that were used in the study. Percent similarity based on OR5 sequence was 87.7% with Ingelvac PRRS and 86.6% for Fostera PRRS. So the isolate that we used, the challenge isolate, and in this study was truly heterologous. Pretty typical PRRS challenge design, randomized and blinded vaccination challenge study. The pigs were 3 weeks of age and PRRS naive and also confirmed PCR negative at the onset of the study. At day 0, vaccinated treatment groups are vaccinated. Day 28 or 4 weeks later is when we have the challenge day. Day 28 of the study. This is 4 weeks following vaccination. And typical of these types of heterologous protection studies, the 4 weeks between vaccination and challenge is to allow the vaccinated treatment groups to develop a protective immune response in the face of challenge. Day 42, which is 2 weeks post-challenge, pigs are necropsied, and at that point, lungs are evaluated for PRRS-induced lung lesions. 14 weeks is a pretty typical timeline where we would look at lung lesions in a PRRS-induced or a uncomplicated PRRS challenge. It's where we expect to see peak lung lesions from a PRRS challenge. This is just a slide that is a table, another summary of the study design. You can see there's 2 vaccinated treatment groups, the Ingelvac PRRS MLV and the Fostera PRRS vaccinated groups, both with 45 pigs. And then treatment group 3 is the non-vaccinated challenge controls, 65 in that group. We call them placebos for this particular study. Both vaccinated treatment groups are vaccinated per label, 2 mLs IM, and that's day 0 of the study. And then day 28 or 4 weeks following vaccination, all 3 treatment groups, vaccinates and non-vaccinates, are challenged with the North Carolina PRRS virus isolate. The challenge was an IN, intranasal and intramuscular route of administration, and again, this is pretty typical challenge route of administration. And the total challenge dose was 10 to the 5 TCID 50. So it's a pretty stout challenge. Okay? and that was the same for all treatment groups. And then again, 2 weeks later, pigs were necropsied for lung lesion evaluation, as well as average daily weight gain and other measurable parameters. All right, so what did we measure? On this particular study, we measured percent lung lesions, again at day 42 or the conclusion of the study. Average daily weight gain during that post-challenge period, day 28 to day 42, that 14-day post-challenge period, and then viremia. In these types of studies, immunized animals that have a level of protection, we expect to see some reduction in post-challenge viremia, so that's our expectation. When we do a challenge model with a new emerging isolate, that's a question we want to try to answer, or at least ask and answer. So we assess post-challenge viremia again during that post-challenge period, day 28 to day 42. All right, results. We'll look at the gross lung lesions first. Again, this was 14 days post-challenge. And you can see that we had a good challenge. Treatment group 3, the challenge controls, non-vaccinated challenge controls, had 25.4% lung lesions, gross lung lesions. Is a pretty uncomplicated PRRS challenge, so the 25.4% lung lesions are what we would call uncomplicated PRRS-induced lung lesions. So it was a pretty good challenge. You can see in both vaccinated treatment groups we have a significant reduction in lung lesions. Okay, both vaccinated treatment groups have a significant reduction in lung lesions. There's a numerical difference between Ingelvac and Fostera, 8.4% lung lesion score for Ingelvac and 12.9% for Fostera. But again, both vaccinated treatment groups demonstrate a significant reduction in lung lesion scores compared to the non-vaccinated controls. Okay? Average daily weight gain. Again, this is just a 14-day post-challenge average daily weight gain, so it's not a long period of time, but it's something we try to measure. We expect to see some evidence that there's an improved average daily weight gain in vaccines compared to non-vaccines. And again, we saw that here, like we did the lung lesions. It was a good challenge. The challenge controls were hammered pretty good. Virtually very little of any weight gain during that 14-day post-challenge period. The non-vaccinated challenge controls grew at 0.24 pounds per day. Both vaccinated treatment groups demonstrated a significant improvement in average daily gain compared to the controls. But again, like we saw in the lung lesions, there was a numerical difference between Ingelvac PRRS and Fostera. 0.61 pounds per day gain for Ingelvac and 0.49 pounds per day for Fostera. But again, I want to reiterate that both vaccinated groups demonstrated a significant reduction in average daily gain compared to controls. So we'll look at post-challenge viremia. A couple points I want to make here. This is a pretty typical post-challenge viremia curve. What we saw at day 29, which is 1 day post-challenge, picture challenge at day 28, is there is a significant reduction in viremia at day 29 in both vaccinated treatment groups compared to controls. And that's demonstrated here with a little asterisk in the star. And the graph doesn't do the reduction, the degree of reduction doesn't do it justice, but it is what it is. But here the vaccines have a significant reduction in post-challenge viremia at day 29, 1 day post-challenge. Okay? I think what surprised a lot of us in this study is what we saw at day 31. Typically, we would expect to see the non-vaccinated challenge controls to continue to have an elevating post-challenge viremia that kind of stays high and continues on through day 35, and if there's any decay at all, not before day 42. And quite frankly, in a previous study with the same isolate, that's exactly what we saw. But in this particular study, the challenge controls, we have a dip in post-challenge viremia, which is pretty hard to explain. In fact, we have no explanation for that. It's a rarity. It's one of the first times we've ever seen anything like that. But it is what it is. As we follow those pigs then to day 35, there's really no difference in post-challenge viremia between any of the treatment groups. And then 2 weeks post-challenge, and this is pretty typical what we would expect. 2 weeks post-challenge, we see in the Engelvac PRRS MLV vaccinated group, significant reduction in viremia compared to the non-vaccinated challenge controls and the Fostera vaccinated group. Okay, so pretty straightforward challenge efficacy type study. In conclusions, what we can say is both Engelvac PRRS MLV and Fostera PRRS vaccinated groups demonstrate a significant reduction in lung lesions. and increased average daily weight gain compared to non-vaccinated challenge controls. The Ingelvac PRRS MLV group had a numerical advantage in both lung lesion score and average daily weight gain compared to Fostera PRRS, as well as a significant reduction in viremia 14 days post-challenge compared to both the Fostera PRRS and non-vaccinated challenge control groups. And the final concluding slide, as we've seen in all the challenge studies to date, in an earlier slide we showed a graph that summarized 21. This is another one like that. Engelvac PRRS MLV demonstrated significant protection against PRRS challenge with a 174 isolate. We saw significant reduction in viremia, significant reduction in lung lesions, as well as a significant improvement in average daily gain.